All right, YouTube, how's it going? Today I want to take you through a quick calculator that I put together comparing an EV to an ICE vehicle. A lot of misconception out there, a lot of assumption that driving an EV is always the lower cost option. And basically, I wanted to put together a quick calculator and help anyone along that process for deciding if an EV is correct for you and if it makes sense. You'll notice in this top line, we have my cost of home electricity, which is 18 cents per kilowatt. And anything in these yellow boxes are going to be user input fields. So feel free to download this. I'll leave a link in the description so that you can download this and do your own calculations. And if you see areas where this could be improved, feel free to comment below and let me know, and I can definitely get those incorporated. So the way I have it now, as I said, I have the 18 cents per kilowatt, which is my home charging, and I have 43 cents in for DC fast charging. That's the standard rate for Electrify America. If you are part of their Members Plus, that would be 31 cents. If you're in an area where it's pay by the minute, you may have to go in and make some assumptions on the cost per kilowatt or adjust this to your needs. Of course, user input would be after you put in your costs, you want to put in your vehicle or the vehicle that you're interested in average mile per kilowatt. Now, for many people, might not know what that is if you're unfamiliar with EVs. As you know, I've got the Mustang Mach-E, and I've got the standard range battery, which is a EPA estimated range of 211 and a usable capacity of 68 kilowatts. So if you take the 211 or the EPA number and divide it by the battery pack size, you will get what that EPA rating was based on. For the Mustang Mach-E, they were using a 3.1 kilowatt, a 3.1 mile per kilowatt for the average. But in the summer for this vehicle, you will get better range, and in the winter, especially this vehicle with no heat pump, you will get lower. So you'll want to adjust these numbers based on the vehicle that you're most interested in. And again, make sure you're putting in a lower number for the winter range. Regardless of heat pump or not, you are going to have loss in the winters. Your cost of gasoline. Last time I drove past a gas station here in the state of New Hampshire where I am, it was $4.59. I believe it's gone up a little bit more. And then this green section here, you don't enter anything, but this is using a very generic mile per kilowatt times 40 calculation, a bit of a rule of thumb so that you can calculate based on these average mile per kilowatt what that would look like on an MPG, mile per gallon rating. You can see because the numbers are the same across home and fast charging, those calculations would also be the same. The next section that you'll want to start participating in is this lower section. Again, the yellow boxes are for user input, so input the items that are specific to you. For this case, I'm going to use we'll use 3.0, and in my specific case, my battery is a 68 kilowatt usable capacity. So based on this 3.0, we are getting an estimated range of 204 miles. So again, if I were to use the EPA standard, you can see that that is just about the 211 that Ford projects. But because I do a good mix of city and highway driving, I will go ahead and just average out these numbers for this example. But again, your numbers will vary. If you're mostly doing highway, I would say aim for the lower number. If you're mostly doing city, aim for closer to the average or the higher numbers. So again, we've got an estimated range of 204 miles for this particular vehicle. Now, again, that's assuming going from 100% full to 0% remaining. And you're never going to actually get to either of those numbers for the most part. But again, this is just a good rule of thumb calculator to help you through the process. We're going to use a 1,000 mile per month. That's relatively close to the average. I drive less than this, so this is not really a good example in my use case. But your mile will vary, right? So if you want to put additional miles in there or take miles out, this will run these calculations for you. So just looking down the EV side, if you do all your EV charging at home, as you should, that would be the preferred way. In my cost calculations, you take the cost of the vehicle. So my vehicle was just about $51,000. I did get access to the tax credit. Now, not all EVs have access to that tax credit. GM, Tesla, for example. Ford will start to phase out in 2023 with the Lightning going into production and the popularity of the Mustang Mach-E. They're going to hit their threshold for when that phase out period comes in play. But if you're looking at another vehicle like a Polestar or a Hyundai Kia, just the other EVs that are out there, they still have access to that credit. But your amount of credit may vary depending on your tax liability. So that's very specific to you, and you need to figure that out on your own. But you can see that if you take the cost of the car minus the tax credit plus what you're paying for fuel, so if you look at the formula here, I've got the annual fuel, and we're just calling electricity fuel at this point. We're getting a total cost of $47,100 over a 5-year lifespan. Now, if you're planning to have an EV and say you live in an apartment or in a city where you don't have the option to home charge, it's always been my recommendation that maybe hold off on a full battery EV at this point and maybe look towards more of a hybrid option if you're looking to reduce your fuel consumption. But say you're hell set on having an EV and you need to EV fast charge or DC fast charge. Again, we're using the Electrified America numbers here. Your numbers will vary. If you're buying a Tesla, that number is going to be a good bit cheaper. They've built the cost of their charging network more into the cost of the car, and that cost will be different. So again, you'd go up top. This will work for a Tesla as well. Just enter whatever the Tesla cost is there. But in this scenario, driving a non-Tesla vehicle, charging at Electrify America, you are at a 5-year. I just spotted a calculation error. So at a 5-year total cost of ownership, for this example, you'd be at about $52,100. In the annual cost, just based on the vehicle that I have in for ICE right now, your cost of fuel isn't really much of a savings. Now, if you are considering an ICE vehicle as well, that's where the ICE column comes in. You put in your average mile per gallon based on, again, the EPA rating that's on the Moroni sticker, understanding your driving habits. Again, if you're driving, highways are typically lower, cities are typically higher. So if you want to put in an average that you believe would be applicable, then do so there. I'm using 29 miles MPG here. The vehicle that I'm comparing against has an 18.5 gallon gas tank, which means you would get approximately 536 miles of total range. Again, that's filling it and getting it all the way to the point of dying. And based on today's gas prices that pulled in from the above section, it would cost approximately $85 every time you filled that tank. Again, from 0 to 100, but just for rule of thumb, that's the calculation I'm using here. And if you look over and compare that to EV charging, even in the more expensive case, you're at $30 versus $85. Your cost per mile with an EV obviously going to be lower in these situations, but getting into the total cost of ownership, there is a box here where you can enter your annual service cost. Now, this includes oil changes and things that are very specific to an ICE vehicle. EVs are not going to have the oil changes, obviously. If you want to build in a little extra on the assumption that you're going to go through brakes quicker in a ICE vehicle, because most EVs have one pedal driving, you could do that. The flip side is that EVs are harder on tires, so you may run out of tires quicker. So I chose to keep this more on things like an oil change. That's the real big difference. So looking at this vehicle, it's a much lower cost vehicle. It's $33,628. That is based on a vehicle that I recently purchased, and you can see that with that cost of the vehicle, you're looking at a $44,000 cost of ownership. So in this case, an ICE vehicle is definitely still a lower cost option than an equivalent EV. And the reason I say equivalent is if you look at from a feature set, you can get much of what you can in many EVs in ICE vehicles that are down and around this $33,000 range. If you were to put this at a similar price, say you were going to go up in luxury on the ICE vehicle and you bought a vehicle that was the same MSRP, you were looking at $61,500. And if you were taking the tax credit into account in your buying decision and you wanted to assume $43,000, you're looking at a total cost of $53,000. So again, there is cost savings to be had depending upon the vehicles that you are looking at. Continuing with that same example, I've included hybrids in the mix here as well. So again, you take your average or your cost per gasoline, put in your average MPGs for that vehicle. For this example, I'm using a 2022 Hyundai Tucson plug-in hybrid, the limited model, which is pretty much loaded. And based on the EPA website, that vehicle has an 11.1 gallon tank. It is also capable of going up to 35 miles on electricity alone, but just taking into account the average MPGs, multiplied by the amount of fuel that it holds, you'd get approximately 390 miles per tank. So it would cost you $51 to fill that up. So now you're down at about 13 cents per mile for this specific vehicle. Now, if you charge it at home to get that battery full, there would be some electricity cost that's not factored in here. But keeping that same oil change service number that we had in the previous example, taking its sticker price of $45,125, that's an actual vehicle showing up in their inventory, which is why I used that one. It was the highest priced. And looking at the fueleconomy.gov website to see what tax credit is available for this specific plug-in hybrid. Now the amount's going to vary depending on the vehicle, based on the cost of the vehicle and battery size and such. So visit the website and look there to pull your specific costs. But in this example, you're looking at a total cost of about $46,500. So I hope this tool helps you guys through the process of identifying, is an EV right for me? Am I going to save money? I wouldn't take into account the gas savings and impact on the environment unless you truly understand where your electricity is coming from. But again, this is just a helpful tool that